much for tuning in to Tits and Giggles this week. So, guys, I wanted to have a special episode because it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So I wanted to interview someone that is a breast cancer survivor. So, yeah, guys, meet my guest this week.
My name is Batty, pronounced like Patty, but with a V. So I am a creative person. I have dedicated the last 12 years of my life in working in fashion design.
Oh, wow.
Design denim. In my spare time, I like to write music. I like to record. I've been dabbling into writing and acting. I am 34 years old. I think 3 years ago, I got diagnosed with breast cancer.
So since you said you was 31, so young, how did you find out that you had breast cancer? What was the steps?
I have a history of breast cancer in my family. My mom is a survivor. My mom is one of 4 women, or 4 sisters. And like 3 out of the 4 had some type of reproductive cancer. Like She had a sister with ovarian, and she had another sister with breast cancer. So it always had been something that I was mindful of. So I always used to look out for like lumps, and I've always been kind of like, when it came to like birth control, I've always been kind of weary of like not trying anything hormonal. I'm also a mom of 2. When each of my pregnancies, I've kind of always noticed a lump. The first time I noticed a lump was when I was pregnant with my first child. The doctors were mindful to biopsy it, and it came out okay. So during my second pregnancy, I was 28. I noticed the lump again, and I went in. This time, the health professionals did not want to biopsy the lump. They said that like they felt like I was too young.
What?
Yeah, and then they said to me that usually when there's like a history of cancer in someone's family, usually because of a gene mutation, it's called the BRCA1 gene mutation or the BRCA2 mutation. When people have these, men can have these gene mutations too and pass it on to their daughters, and also these genes are also responsible for prostate cancers and other types of other reproductive cancers. They felt like if I didn't have the gene, then they really didn't feel the need to kind of like investigate the lump any further. Being that my mom was already like a survivor at that time, they asked if she can get tested to see if she's a carrier.
Okay.
My mom went and got tested, and we knew she was a carrier. So I'm a carrier of the gene.
So your mom was a carrier. Mm-hmm. You got your mom tested, and then you end up getting tested to see if you had breast cancer after your mom got tested?
Yeah, but the thing is that I honestly didn't even do it right away. After the doctors were dismissive about it and told me I was young, that my breasts were lumpy, even though my mom's results came back that she had the gene, I asked my sisters about testing so we can all do it together, because I'm also one of 4 sisters.
Right.
None of them felt comfortable. They didn't want to know. Yeah. So I just kept feeling like, well, if they don't want to know, then I don't want to know. Like, I wanted to know, but I felt like I needed them to kind of like push and support. My sister, she was curious about our like genetics and stuff. And so she took one of those like 23andMe tests. It was actually Ancestry.
Oh, okay. I don't trust Ancestry, girl, but okay.
I have a cousin who works as a biology major, and she recommended a third-party site called Prometheus. And it's like a site where you can upload all the raw DNA information from either Ancestry.com or 23andMe.
Prometheus? That sound mad biblical. That sound like they have the DNA going back to Adam and Eve.
They were able to identify that my sister had the BRCA1 gene.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So then that made me start to really think about the lump that I had, you know?
So this is crazy. So you had to do all of this research on your own before you went to go get your test to see if you had breast cancer. Why were they not encouraging you, especially since you had a lump, to get your breast checked out?
That's the whole thing. I feel like I was misdiagnosed. And the first doctors that I ever pointed it out to, the first time when I was 21, they actually did the right thing by biopsying it because of my history. The second one, even though I had that strong history of cancer in my family and I found the lump, they felt like I was too young. But I trusted that hospital. It was a hospital in Massachusetts. That's the hospital where my mom had her treatment. It's the hospital where I was born. It's the hospital where like I've had my 2 kids, because that's how much I trusted the healthcare there. And I feel like it was a misdiagnosis because I kept an eye on that lump for the following year afterwards, and it just never went anywhere. What they wanted me to do is just get my mom tested, but that was unnecessary. All the extra testing I did on my own out of just like curiosity.
I don't know why do you think they was like so hesitant about getting you tested? It was just your age thing?
It's predominantly because of my age. They kept looking at it like women under 40 do not get breast cancer. There were some difficulties to just getting a mammogram when you're under 40. I just want to point that out. So it wasn't as simple for me to just go and say, I want to schedule myself a mammogram. I remember calling and they told me I needed a referral in order to do that. Women over 40, they're able to just get schedule one because they recommend women over 40 to get mammograms. They don't recommend it for women under 40. And I remember kind of like not wanting to go through the trouble anymore because of work. I remember one morning on my way to work, after it was that same week after visiting my mom and her, like, you know, making me promise to take care of it. I remember on my train ride to work, I ran into my neighbor, and my neighbor said, hey, do you, I don't know why, it was just kind of like a bit of gossip, but like mentioned someone from our building who's a survivor, who I had no idea was a survivor. She was a new mother and she was young. And I was like, he said, you know, so-and-so, you know, was a survivor. And when she was like, you know, going through it, her boyfriend left. And it was just a bit of gossip.
Oh, her boyfriend left her when she had breast cancer? Lord Jesus, this man, Lord.
And honestly, I'm actually currently working on a book. It's fiction, but based on a character who's kind of navigating the dating scene and dealing with cancer. And you'll be surprised the kind of things that like a woman will go through while battling cancer. A piece of information saved my life because that woman was far younger than me. I'm thinking she had been like anywhere from 23, 24, 25. I don't know exactly their age, but so then it just dawned on me it was quite possible that I had cancer. And when I thought about my aunt, my mom's sister, she passed away at 50. And I've always remembered her being a survivor. Like ever since I was born, she was a survivor. So before I was born, she had cancer. So when I was doing the math, I mean, she was diagnosed at 31 or 30. So I said, oh my God, this is really beyond possible. Like I called, they told me that I could only come in like between 9 to 5. And the reason I want to say that because it could bring issues when it comes to employment. I think employers should allow you time to be able to take care of something like that, and it should be paid, you know?
It should be paid because these employers, they don't care about your life. They don't care if you're dead or alive. They don't care at the end of the day. If something happens to you, they'll replace you the next day.
And then I think as women, we're stuck worrying day to day about like how we're making ends meet, and we're not really taking into consideration what's priority. I literally made that phone call, and when they said I had to take time off, I kind of canceled the appointment. My boss had a meeting with me. She wanted to discuss, because as I mentioned, I'm a designer, and I was working on a line, and it was a new line, and they were taking kind of like a chance on me. So they wanted to hold off on me creating new designs until they got the samples. So in order to do that, they wanted me to go on a mandatory 2-week leave. That mandatory 2-week vacation saved my life because I looked at it like it was a sign. I'm literally walking in the office. As you know, like when you're a working woman, you don't even have time to make things like these little phone calls if you're working 9 to 5 during business hours where you're supposed to be making appointments, right? So it's like I'm rushing to walk into work feeling self-conscious that I'm outside trying to make that phone call. I want to take an extra long lunch break. I don't want to take the time off. And this is my health we're talking about.
Wow,
and
girl.
So I said, as women, we put ourselves last sometimes.
Lovecraft had a whole story about, you know, this black lady. It's a weird show about women caring about the family, caring about the man, caring about society. Everything else is before the black woman.
Freedom, like I've never known before. I see what I was robbed of back then.
Black women are more likely to die of breast cancer than white women. It's not that Black women get diagnosed more often. white women are actually more likely to get breast cancer than Black women. It's just that like by the time that we discover our cancers, it's too late.
Wow, girl, Lord Jesus, Lord, this is crazy.
Yeah.
You think it's the doctors, or is it just we just, you know, are not taking care of ourselves?
It can be everything that I said. It can be us putting ourselves last, because you brought that as a segue. It can be like Black women kind of taking on a lot of like responsibility and a lot of like, you know, yeah, like we're drilled in to just take more. I don't know if like, you know, we're kind of raised that way, honestly, you know, and then to just like suck things up, especially like when we're sick, especially when we don't feel well. And then also in the healthcare system, when we're finally like speaking up, they don't take us seriously when we do say we have a problem. My personal example, they did not take me seriously when I first had the lump.
It goes back to like the Tuskegee experiment and how like a lot of Black people just don't trust doctors, and then sometimes it's no reason to trust them because they just be giving us the runaround.
History itself tells us that like we're always used like as guinea pigs in medicine.
So going back to when after you got diagnosed, what were the steps after that you took?
But luckily for me, my gynecologist was thorough. She checked both my breasts. At this point, I only was aware of the one that was on my left because it was like almost this big by now, like the size of almost a lemon.
Oh, wow.
The other one on the right was very small, and she recommended, she felt something else. And she said that like, I should get that checked out. I think that like I was able to get an ultrasound the next day, and then I had a biopsy. I got the results back from the lab saying that it was positive. Right then and there, I was like walking, crossing the street in the middle of traffic. I could have gotten hit by a car. I was right there in the Bronx. I remember it like it was yesterday, and they told me the results while I was on the phone. And then so the very next day I met with a breast surgeon who helped me discuss kind of like my treatment options and stuff. And then once you have the breast surgeon, you get kind of plugged in with an oncologist. You get plugged in with like, for me, genetic counselor because of my history. And then I got plugged in with like a support system, breast cancer support group. But one of the things that I really want anybody to like take away is that from being plugged in with the support group was called 5 Under 40. They're still around. I don't know if anybody want to follow them, check them out. It's for women who were diagnosed with cancer at the time when they were under 40 years old. Yeah. And I just want to make some disclaimers. In my experience, the first reason why they did not want to test and biopsy my breast was because they said I was too young. I want to make a disclaimer that like you're not too young, because like I said, my support group is for women who were under 40 who got cancer. First of all, the reason why they wanted to wait is that they wanted to make sure that I carried the gene. There were women in my support group who do not have the gene mutation who are under 40 who had cancer.
Wow.
Because in my group, I found out the youngest person to have the breast cancer in my group is 21. And she does not. Yes. And she did not have a history. She doesn't carry the BRCA1 gene mutation.
Girl, I'm gonna have to start feeling my boobs more often because I don't.
We always that we're eating. I don't know the stuff that we're exposing to.
It's probably stuff we eating, girl. It's probably that Popeyes. Because
oh my God, it's so funny because I literally was telling my mom that after a while I was like, I think that Popeyes is giving it to us. She's like, what? I was like, is that oil? Is that like chicken? That
the Popeyes chicken has steroids. Any chicken that I have to square up with, I shouldn't have no business eating.
And then she was like,
fake chicken, girl. It's fake chicken. I don't know if it's real chicken. And then, you know, I heard Burger King be selling horse meat. So it's just like some stuff we just be, and then McDonald's, I don't even know what type of, I don't know if that's real beef or not. So I think it's fake soy or something mixed.
Real, what you're saying right now is real.
Girl, it better not be Bluebell ice cream because I love some Bluebell ice cream, Lord Jesus.
More fed up, man. We just trying to get that Bluebell ice cream back in stores. That's the whole reason we riding. The Bluebell been out for 2 or 3 weeks.
People like I've heard people like going like raw vegan and curving it and doing the holistic treatments. I went the traditional route, but I did do a combination of like going vegan.
You think the vegan stuff, going vegan and juicing and all that stuff, you think that works?
It works for some people. I've heard stories about people curving, but I've also heard about stories about people kind of like it coming back. I will tell you, like, the way we treat cancer right now is very invasive, because the thing about cancer is that one thing you have to keep in mind is that even though it's a scary topic, it's like your chances of survival are highest when you catch it the earliest.
Early.
The earlier you find it, the better your prognosis is, you know, because once it spreads, it gets really hard to like target. Like, it's funny because my cousin was talking about the situation with Chadwick Boseman, and she was saying how it was really sad that it was at that stage that because if you find it early, like, his prognosis would have been better. Like, I encourage every woman to know their breast, to know if there's a change in there, and you would know, because you may not know it the first time, you may not know what you're feeling for the first time you do it, but if you do it the same time of month, like, let's say you do it mid-cycle, mid-cycle, like 2 weeks after your period, you always do it 2 weeks after your period or something. If you do it the same time of month every month, then it should be the same. You understand? So, like, if you feel a lump, take a note of it. Next month you do it, if that lump is still there, take a note of it. If it's getting bigger, you have to speak on it. You go to your doctors, you got to be able to be like, what about this right here? Is this normal? And then if they tell you no, and you continue to do your self-exam, it's not going anywhere, or it's like growing, you need to like go back and like, I really want you to check this, because this does not feel normal. And there's other kinds. Does the skin look weird? Because I remember the skin had looked weird before. Does the nipples look a little bit droopy? Just know the signs. Just know your breast.
Your nipples look droopy if you got breast cancer?
They'll either sink.
Like the nipples be hanging. Like, they just don't be pointy like this. They be, you know.
If you got pictures, it would look abnormal. Some of them look infected. Those are the ones that have the cancer in the duct. These ones a little bit, that kind of cancer is a little bit more rare. But it's just things to just be aware of.
Your man, they have breast cancer too, but Lord, I don't think it's the same rate as women.
Not the same rate, and I'm glad you bring it up. You brought it up because men do get it too, and it isn't at the same rate. It's just alarming that as Black women that we are more likely to die from it, though, for these reasons. And so we do have to raise that awareness, because at least the white women, even though they genetically are getting it more often, they're catching it sooner.
Like, you know, say you didn't get a mastectomy, say you don't get that. Does it just, because you had lumps before, like in your boobs, does it change?
The thing is that like, a lot of women, depending on the stage, that's why the stage matters. If you're like stage 0, could be like when it's very, very small. There is such a thing as like they just discovered stage 0. There's stage 1, depending on the size. Between stage 1 and even stage 2, they could just sometimes remove the tumor, and you just have a surgery, and you could go on about like your life. You know, it doesn't really change the composition of your breast much when you do that. Your breast will feel the same. You're gonna have a scar. There's gonna be a chunk of it missing, but you could go on and just like, you know, if you haven't had kids, have kids, breastfeed, and all of that.
Oh wow, okay.
But a lot of women, like, depending on the doctor, depending on the size and the location, sometimes they do a single mastectomy where like they like remove that one breast that had the cancer. A lot of the times the women will just have the skin, and then they'll have like the implant, and then they will like not spare the nipple, because like, you know, it could be a risk factor for it to come back. They try to remove as much of the breast that was in contact with the cancer.
Is there any main advice that you want to give women out there?
Honestly, just simple advice can really make the difference. Because like just simple advice really was the difference between life and death for me. Just someone kind of like bringing it to my attention to raise awareness about it. It's just a simple conversation on an ordinary Monday that really made the difference in my life. Simply doing a simple breast exam and continuously doing it and being on top of that is something ordinary that helped me discover something that would have potentially be life-threatening. It's just like, if somebody's watching anyone, you just have to keep in mind that you don't have to be over 40 to get breast cancer. You don't have to be, you don't have to have a history of it in your family to get it. Sooner that you get it checked out, the better your chances of having a high quality and survival rates are, as if nothing almost happened. It's something you could put behind you. So it's not something to be afraid of. It's just something that we should all incorporate in our routine.